Episode 6 Heart of Mass Destruction. Slash and cut and sever and cleave. At the table are those who leave. Bite and fight and crash and burn. The cold is given to those who learn. Castaway, your spot is yours to earn. Slash and cut and sever and cleave. He burns the world while you have to grieve. The heat, the light, the Armageddon. The cold and ice is all you set in. A frost-hearted boy, a freedom so hot, the father grins, he taunts those who fought. A son stood before his father at the other end of a caldera, forming a boiling coliseum for two combatants. The man called to his father, asking him what happened. The father responded in kind, grinning as he spoke to his boy. "You never got it." And with that, the battle began. Hart stood still, anticipating the movement of his father, who began to stride through the rock and scalding water of the great stadium. The crushing pressure did not just fall away from Ouroboros, it came from his breath and body as if he himself was a volcano roiling with sputtering heat. The son moved his hand to the hilt of his blade, still waiting for the violence of his father to trespass into his space. Once the serpents were halfway across the caldera to one another, Ouroboros unleashed his force and speed to rush his own son with the intent to crush him beneath the force of a meteor. Hart drew forth his blade, a midnight blue color shone from within it. He moved swiftly to force his own father to defend. As his jaws were open for an attack, he had to grab the sharpened blade to block the slashing force, enough to sever a continent from its mainland. Images of Hart's childhood ripped through his mind. He remembered one lesson his father once taught him. The boy and his dad sat upon the edge of a canyon, gazing out into the wild landscape before them. Hart looked up to his father with tired eyes, not having got much sleep last night. Ouroboros looked back with that ever-present grin cutting his face in half. "I knew the boogeyman, you know. Her name was Lily." As he struck fear into the heart of his own child, he then began to tell the lesson of the story in which he met this boogeyman. That is, of course, he told his boy that everything was alive, and thus everything could be surpassed. This, of course, did not soothe the scared feelings of a child afraid of monsters under the bed. Ouroboros brought the sword down, burying it within the ground as he whipped around his arm with the violent force of a hurricane. Hart was sent flying as the blow to his chest knocked all but a breath from his lungs, leaving his body screaming for air. But a man like Hart is not shaken by such a sudden loss of oxygen. So he closed his eyes just as the golden streak rocketed toward him faster than any vicious wind, and the deep field of blue sadness exploded out from him like a celestial storm, diverting the direction of Ouroboros high into the white sky. He opened his eyes and took in a breath just as the beating of his heart synced with a single punch aimed directly at the now falling primordial. A direct hit crushed into Ouroboros' side. Hart's mind traveled back to the next lesson his father taught him. He remembered that home in the city of Las Vegas that they once dwelled within. The arbiters of law for the area came knocking. When they did, Ouroboros knelt to the side of Hart and spoke with a red color shining within his eyes. He told Hart that every transgression onto freedom was a transgression that could not be tolerated. That day, Hart lost his innocence. He saw every single person perish in a massacre remembered to this day. The blood of this place ran free like a flood, and in his heart all he could feel is a repulsion and a deep empathy for all those families who wouldn't be seen again. As Ouroboros went flying, Hart jumped to retrieve his blade stashed into the ground. In response to this, Ouroboros took in a breath and let release a great exhale of superheated air with motion so hot the surface of a supergiant star seemed like a cool breeze, vaporizing rock and turning gas to plasma. For his blood moves so quickly that the simple friction within his veins generates this heat. As Hart faced down this impending tidal wave, he felt a twist into his back from behind. His eyes widened as he coughed, as he was thrust into the center of the steam, leaving his feet with no ground to stand upon, and his breath with only fire to draw from. He fell, down, down, down through the horrible melting of his skin and peeling of scales. But Hart stayed calm, sheathing his blade. As he placed his hand back upon its handle and unleashed a burst of sadness even greater than the last, clearing away all the caustic smog. When the breath cleared, all he could see was the red, glowing eyes and silhouette of his father looming with the bright white light escaping from his grin as it shone for the entire world to see, to fear. Hart focused in as his own eyes shone a brilliant blue hue. He knew that the next blow would surely crush one or both of them. Ouroboros threw his arms out to the side and began to release the mental blocks he placed upon himself to make sure he could stay on a level comparable to every other being. Each one counted down, shedding more brilliant light from the primordial. Upon the fourth lock being unleashed, it is said that the entire world turned golden in that moment. And when the fifth was crushed, Ouroboros allowed anything within the Wonderland to glimpse a taste of who he truly was. Hart glimpsed his father and remembered back to the final lesson he taught him. His father had just pushed back against the event horizon, leaving his arms stained with blood and his teeth grizzled with meat. Fear took hold of the young boy as his own father, bathed in violence, stalked forward towards him. He then heard the voice of the cruel parent ring from the maw of the beast. "You know, boy, this violence, this death, it is for me." His next words echoed within the head of the young serpent. "Do you get it?" Hart roared out, knowing that he'd die in this clash with his father. His cold, bleeding heart began to leak its icy blood upon the world. He raised his blade, and as Ouroboros shot forward faster than light itself with more force than a big bang, he brought down his blade, defining its nature against his father. The world was blinded that day as the father and son, Hart and Ouroboros, clashed. Hart laid upon the ground, sword flung aside, broken. He couldn't feel his beating lifeline anymore, but as he clung to life, he glanced to his father, sitting atop him, holding his heart. "So you do get it." As Ouroboros thrust his heart back into his son, Hart could swear he saw a gash in the shoulder of his father, and a single drop of blood drawn from his scales. Wormhole Wonderland was created, written, and produced by Win Oates, with music by Dummis and Caleb Mazzota. Visit our website down below by Webmaster Callum, and visit our Discord. Thank you for listening to Wormhole Wonderland.